So I think we should just get started. And if we're if it works out, we can even end a little bit early in case nobody else joins us and it's just the two teams. So Kylie, I was just saying 20 minutes for each project, and feel free to interrupt and ask questions if you have any. And then if we have people joining us in the last 20 minutes who have questions, they can aim them your way from other projects.
Perfect. Thanks, Cheryl.
So we're going to start with Wes. Wes is at work doing double duty here as an award-winning Playground City grantee and trying to hold down his day job. So Wes, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Awesome. Thanks, Cheryl. Can you all hear me?
You sound great.
Awesome. Okay, so I will share my screen. And we'll see if this all works out. All right, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Awesome. Looks great. Great, thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Wes. I am working with Playground City. We are a Florida nonprofit organization designing actually robust and adventurous learning experiences for our city here in Orlando. And we are especially thankful for the MacArthur Foundation, Visual Media Learning, Haystack, LRNG, Convergence Labs, and our fiscal sponsor, Growing Orlando. So real quick, I want to take you through our agenda for this presentation, a quick introduction to the team, about our design, our methodology that we're employing to actually complete this grant, some of the points of progress, some of the challenges we're facing, and our next steps. So for all the folks who
to fly out, or like they don't.
Oh, just for all the folks who are around the country, just to sort of orient you on where we're located, we're right here in the heart of Florida, the most southeastern continental U.S. state. And this is a little overview of our downtown. So I'm currently here at City Hall, and the area in which we're working to employ a lot of these, to employ specifically this DML grant is in the neighborhood just to the west of City Hall called Paramore. And you can see the geography is quite interesting. Two major highways, sort of one bifurcating the neighborhood and one along the edge. These play a role, things like these highways and some of the other characteristics of this built environment play a role in either contributing to education here in Paramore or detracting from education and opportunities for education. So with connected learning and these digital playlists, we're hoping to break through barriers that might exist just by nature of sort of urban design and celebrating all the opportunities for learning in the neighborhood through a connected learning paradigm. So this is our design team, and on this grant we have myself, Molly, DeAndre, Kelsey, and Hannah, super creative, playful, young people here in Orlando who are dedicating a lot of time and effort into completing this mission. So our project starts with a design question, and we take very heavily from, I'll say we creatively rip very heavily from the IDEO design kit on human-centered design. And basically the first step to human-centered design is understanding the design challenge. So our design challenge for this grant has been how might we design playlists that enable youth in our neighborhood to discover links between their passions and the neighborhood food environment and empower them to positively impact it. So we find that the digital playlist is a tremendous tool in helping our local youth discover how passions are connected to things like their neighborhood food environment. And we think that also this tool can present pathways for positively impacting, empowering the youth to positively impact that neighborhood food environment. Our grant narrative really, when you sort of boil it down, our main deliverable is that we will deliver 7 playlists for learning about food security here in Orlando. And the overall playlist we will be producing is essentially like a urban farming 101 sort of skill building. We'll be utilizing digital media to celebrate urban farming here in Orlando. And then we have 6 sort of auxiliary playlists that connect to the urban farming playlist. The onboarding playlist is called Odd Farmer. And the idea of the onboarding playlist is that no matter where you are, what conditions you're growing in, what the context might be, the Odd Farmer playlist should help you start growing food immediately. It's a super frugal food growing playlist, and as long as you have water and a little bit of sunlight and some seeds, you might not even need soil per se. As long as you have just those basics, though, you can become an odd farmer, start growing in odd places. We then are working on a playlist that deals with more directly access to food and nutrition in the food environment, about building awareness about your place, your position in your neighborhood food environment. The third playlist we're working on, our auxiliary playlist, is the pollinators and pests. And essentially that's using social media and your social network to identify plants, pollinators, and pests. We've learned that essentially social media is not only a tool for expressing, what food you're eating or expressing your mood for the day. It's also a tool for sort of tapping into your network resources and knowledge to identify things in your environment. So the pollinators and pests is really about tapping into that social network knowledge. New Farm Tech is a hacker-focused farming playlist. We'll be using microcontrollers such as Arduino boards to program food production. Cooked is a playlist that essentially connects local chefs in our neighborhood to learn about the science of cooking. And then finally, Feed, which is sort of a look at the marketing of food in our neighborhood food environment. We'll analyze marketing messages and utilize digital media to tell our own food stories. So I briefly talked about human-centered design. If you're not familiar with human-centered design, it's a methodology that focuses on building empathy with the audience in which you're designing for, and also beyond that, co-creating with that audience. It's essentially boiled down into a 3-phase process as presented by IDEO, beginning with the inspiration phase, moving into ideation and implementation. And it's this process in which you adopt divergent and convergent mindsets. In the inspiration phase, it's all about opening up to all the possibilities that the design, the solution might be. And then through the ideation phase, sort of converging in on specific ideas based on rapid prototyping, and then finally implementing, which is an iteration of the inspiration ideation phase. So a lot leading up to through the end of 2016 and here in the very early stages of 2017, we've embarked on the ideation phase, the inspiration phase. And I'll just move this. And through this process, we've been engaging with our design, our target audience, youth, and actually we've engaged with youth under the age of 13, but primarily middle school, high school youth in Paramore. And we've essentially been trying to immerse ourselves in their context. We've joined a group, we've partnered with a group called New Image Youth Center, and they're an after-school program that essentially presents a safe haven for students to do homework after school, but then also they provide a plethora of opportunities for further learning engagement. So we've been spending a lot of time with them. We've been doing group interviews with students and youth, sort of understand their needs and aspirations. We've been interviewing experts in the field. Not everyone on our one of our design team members, Hannah, is actually a farmer, so she's an expert in and of herself. But we've also been reaching out to other experts who engage with youth in programming or are farmers. And then we've actually also been farming to sort of get immerse ourselves in that context as well. The next stage, ideation, is really about rapid prototyping. And this is where we've really this has really been the phase in which we put the LNRG platform in people's hands. We ask them to engage in the platform, and we basically, I think, gained a few insights about how the platform works in the real world. And these pictures sort of basically show in a few instances where we've prototyped the playlist, sort of, I guess, in a live prototype, and just tried to observe how the students interact with the prototype. So on your left, on the left side of the screen, is the prototype for the Odd Farmer badge. 4 XPs that you can do digitally using the internet, and that have a real world context as well. I mean, you're actually sprouting seeds and growing food in odd places. And we've prototyped that with New Image and with the Fleet Farmer folks with some success. And we're going to, as we move into the implementation phase, the Odd Farmer badge is really the first badge we want to implement. It's the one we're closest to implementing. We definitely have some design elements we want to incorporate based on our learnings. So moving into February, March, and April, this is the time when we want to start publishing the final versions of our playlists as a part of the implementation phase. And some of the challenges we're encountering through this process, specifically with using the LNG platform, we're finding that there's still a great deal of training and workshopping that has to go on, specifically with our target audience, bring them up to speed on how to use the platform, and how to integrate the platform into what we call XP flow. So in every case, with all of our farming playlists, there's a flow to the experience. You're learning a lot, and it's a very dynamic time. And we've noticed that in some cases, integrating the LNG platform has sort of disrupted that flow. There may be just, I guess, we'll say, barriers to like showing and proving in the moment or logging on in the moment of the XP. And so we're finding little workarounds using social media and other techniques to sort of to reduce the XP flow disruptions.
And Wes, can you let us know, is that just the slowing down to actually come up with an account and log in, or is it more the interface by mobile? What is can you pinpoint the interruptions?
Yes, definitely the logging on or like the signing up is an aspect. However, with a lot of the people, that's a barrier that you run into initially, and ideally you wouldn't have that barrier every time with the same person who's engaged. That is one of the barriers. I would pinpoint another potential barrier is navigating playlists, and in some cases our what I'm referencing was our user tests we've done prior to like the most recent updates, but it's finding XPs and navigating through a playlist has not always been intuitive for some of our users, at least relative to what in some cases they might be used to. For instance, with one of our users, he preferred just to Instagram all of his show and proves, and he tagged Playground City. And so we were able to go back and essentially prove for him what he had accomplished. We just took screenshots of his Instagram pictures, which was fine too. That worked. That was I think that was a good workaround.
I have a quick question. Sorry to interrupt. Have
No.
you done any user testing since the new youth interface was launched, or was this all primarily in the fall?
This was all prior to our recollection was that the newest interface basically was adopted here in the beginning of this year. Our most recent user testing has been prior to this adoption. Well, we have been doing some user testing with our new image use folks after this most recent update. And perhaps Kelsey can speak to how the students have been interacting with the newest update. So most of my references are post-update, pre-update.
Yeah, I think with our new image folks, it kind of blends in with his next point on the challenges, which is the technological barriers. So, you know, a lot of times it just takes a long time to load these things because they have old computers, their internet is not that great. And so then it just takes a lot of waiting time. Like, okay, well, we're going to do this experience, and I want you to check it out on the computer, and then there's like a virus popping up, or just a delay, you know. And I think part of that is just something that we'll have to grow with and adapt to, because it's not really at the fault of LRNG, and it's kind of because LRNG is so awesome. They have the GIFs, they have the videos, and it's a lot of content to load up on one of these older computers. So what we've been doing is kind of retroactively giving them the XP points, and they have access to computers during their school day. And I think that at school they have better technology and better internet to interface with that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'll also be interested to hear if your students or your teens have any increased ability to get through the playlist now with a new redesign, or a better understanding of like the flow and how to show and prove, but it doesn't solve that basic access to good working technology issue. Although I might have a possible workaround. We should talk about the Sprint 1 Million initiative. There may be a way for us to help you apply for some devices through Sprint. They're giving away up to 1 million devices that come with data, and they should be relatively updated new devices. So if you are interested in that, let me know and I can send you some more information.
Wow, yeah, thank you.
And just to clarify, your playlist flow is linear, so they have to go from one to the next in that cycle? Or can they jump around? Is the navigation of the playlist plural just to sort of see it in its totality, or is it just what do I want to do right now?
Well, it's the way that it's presented on LNG. You can do an XP anytime in any order you prefer. Although there's sort of I guess a default linear nature to it, where it suggests this certain trail that you take, and it also, once you click on the XP itself, it gives you the option to go back to the previous XP or go forward to the next XP. So I think it sort of lends itself to that linear situation. In the cases where we're prototyping, we're definitely guiding the process. We're definitely facilitating each step. So we looked at for instance, in this case, we looked at our zone, what growing zone are we in? We showed them the tools to look that up. And we did our simple sprout XP. We did the let it breathe activity, and then we did the odd farming activity. And we were guiding the process. It would be interesting to see if we just kind of threw it out at them, what they could do without our guidance. Perhaps it's something we need to do in the next phase.
And do you have time before the workshop to do another user test, or is this?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
okay.
We definitely will be doing multiple more user tests in that time. This month is really a strong month for our prototyping. We have over 20 other XPs that we want to prototype this month. So yeah, we're definitely on our way to doing additional user tests. Cool. Yeah, and Kelsey kind of touched on it, the technology barriers. Just one quick anecdote on that. We've noted with some of our students at the New Image Youth Center, they're actually smart devices are in some cases accessible. We've noticed that in some cases a family or a group unit of people will share a single smart device. And so and it's not always the case that every student always brings a smart device, but in some cases they may have access either from a parent or from a brother or sister to a smart device. A challenge also has been sensitivity to intellectual property rights. And that was, so Cheryl, you mentioned, we're formally fleet farming. We started this grant with fleet farming, building out their fleet farming curriculum. And we've, towards the end of 2016, reached some conflicts and barriers to publishing some of the content that we wanted to, because they have some proprietary interests, I guess, in some of the aspects of fleet farming. And we are working through that with them for future playlists, but it's not, we're not able to work it through that with them in the time frame that this grant is required for this grant. So we've transitioned to Growing Orlando. It's a very similar concept where Growing Orlando is taking city-owned vacant lots in Paramore and turning those into urban farming spaces. It's similar in nature. And when it comes down to it, a lot of these experiences aren't really intellectual property. I mean, sprouting a seed is not, there's not really a recipe to that or, copyright to sprouting seeds. So in some cases, the experiences themselves are just out there for the world to engage in. And finally, with some of our playlists, I guess finally it says after school conditions. A lot of our students are coming directly from school, and by the time they get to us and engage in our playlist, they've also have worked on their homework a little bit. So by the time they get to us, learning per se is not the highest on their needs and aspirations lists. And so finding ways to integrate these playlists into the activities that they do want to do at that given time after school is some of our next steps for designing playlists that they will enjoy. But I guess I mean to say in some cases they just want to play basketball or they just want to play Roadblocks, a computer game that they're interested in. And so engaging in these playlists of learning aren't always the highest priority. So like we mentioned just before, we will be reiterating new prototypes over the next month. We also want to orient some of these playlists towards the global goals adopted by the UN in September 2015. So we've been adding global goals to some of our experiences. If the experience does align with a goal, then we put it in there. We also, I say, address other needs and aspirations. So just a quick anecdote. In one of our first interactions with New Image, there was a fight that broke out and left one of the students severely injured, and actually they had to go to the hospital. And it prompted...
I want to mention real quick with that it was like a childlike fight, and then it was just kind of a fluke that the kid fell and got really hurt. It's not like they're super crazy aggressive kids. It's kind of like your typical fight where they do see a lot of violence in the neighborhood. But yeah, I just want to reiterate, they are super good kids. Just kind of that maybe is, I won't say anymore, but yeah, go ahead.
Totally.
Hey, Wes, I just want to make note of the time here. We're going over a little bit. I think we have two people from two other projects, Evan and Paul. I know Paul's been very active in chat. I just want to make sure that we have time for people who might have questions for Tim and Kylie and Gurley. So I just want to make note of that. If you have a couple more.
No, let's jump right into it.
Okay, good. So let's give you a couple minutes here, and then we'll go right into Balboa. And if we have time left over, we can circle back to questions. Do you have any? Oh, you're asking if we have questions for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kylie, Tim, or Gurley, do you have any questions?
No, I think I asked the ones that I was most interested in during the presentation. It's so great to see the work being outlined, and I can't say that I'm surprised around the digital divide struggle. We were aware that it was going to be hard to reach true opportunity youth given the lack of basic access to technology. And then when you go a step above that, it's not just basic access to technology, it's also access to folks who can help them use the technology they do have in meaningful ways. So, yeah. Is there anything that we could help you all with immediately? Are there any pain points or questions that you have for us that we might be able to help troubleshoot?
I think at this moment, we definitely like some of the improvements that have been integrated recently. We are, I guess the main question we might have is using other tools, social media tools, whether it's Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook, and using those tools as ways to show and prove, or having them talk to each other more so that maybe playlists can be presented through Instagram or through other platforms, just to kind of, I guess, be a bridge. And I'm wondering maybe your thoughts about like bridging the two platforms or the multiple platforms.
Tim, are you still there? I might let you speak to this one. But yes, fundamentally, we agree that it would be nice to do more integration across those existing social media platforms. We don't want to fall into the trap of trying to recreate a social media network on LRNG. And we recognize the fundamental importance of allowing youth to collaborate, connect, and communicate with one another and with supportive adults as they work their way through the playlist. But Tim, you may have some more vague specifics.
Part of the last update, we released a very sort of lightweight integration with different social sharing options. So if you post first on LRNG, then you can easily repost on the other platforms. But yeah, definitely agree that it'd be nice to do the opposite and allow learners to post first on Instagram or Twitter and tag it or whatever, so that it could automatically or at least easily be pulled in to suffice for their post. It's definitely a feature request that we've been talking about for, over a year now. I know it's been sort of like on the wish list. So definitely don't have it yet, but it's been on our minds. So fully agree. I do have one question. You mentioned that you were sort of going back to give them credit for XPs that maybe they didn't post on the platform, but you sort of, assessed it or saw their post sort of offline or at least off LRNG. How did you go about giving them credit for those XPs? Did you use the XP approvals feature within the platform?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead, Wes. No.
Yeah, they're using, I'm just pulling it up, but essentially, and actually, that does raise a question though, because I guess because we're a program, that does raise an interesting point. So yeah, we basically used the select content to approve and just uploaded it. But it was difficult to find students who signed up with LNG to actually bring them into our list unless we had their email ahead of time. But if they just signed up on the spot, we couldn't find them basically.
Right. Because you hadn't added them to your organization yet with the groups feature.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we've got to do that.
All right, guys, I'm going to cut you short here so that Balboa has enough time to present. And that was very helpful. Thanks for walking us through so closely. I also I want to say I know we've got Paul and I think Evan here from 2 other projects. So Evan and Paul, if you have specific office hour questions, can you go ahead and put those in the chat so that we know just how much time, and Tim and Kylie and Gurley can take a look and think about the questions, just so we give enough time to the people who have been scheduled to present. So thank you, Wes and Molly and Kelsey. And Balboa, if you want to, Julia, if you're going to screen share or present, if you want to start getting that ready.
Sure thing.
And I hopefully I didn't miss anybody. I think that Evan and Paul, you are the only 2 other projects here for office hours. So if I missed anybody, same goes. Please add a question to the chat if you have something specific for LR&G. And Julia, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it away.
All right, let's see. And do you have the presentation up?
Yes, we can see.
All right. So I'm Julia Falkowski. I'm from the Balboa Park Online Collaborative in San Diego. I also have my coworker Misty on the call with me, so she might jump in with some information as we go along. But our playlist proposal was the Art and Science of Vision. And to give you a little bit more information about us, the Balboa Park Online Collaborative is located in Balboa Park, and there are over 23 museums and cultural institutions here. And our organization serves the rest of the organizations with technology services. So we do website redesigns, we do in-gallery interactives, and we're always interested in seeing how we can connect the different museums and the programming that they offer in different ways. And we had already been thinking about the model of playlists as a way to connect these interdisciplinary museums in the park. And when we saw the DML competition, we thought this would be a great opportunity to further explore that. So we reached out to a few of our partners, and we're working with 3 museums in the park on this project. We've got the Fleet Science Center, the San Diego Air and Space Museum, and the Museum of Photographic Arts. And all 3 of them were very excited about the ways that they could connect their content to just prove the ways that art and science can connect for students. So we have a 3 playlist structure going on. We have the light and depth, we have motion and distance, and perception and perspective. And at this point, we are not making it so that they are cyclical. You can do them in any order to come to a full understanding of the way that these different concepts add up to vision. And our structure will include informational videos. It will include instructional videos because there's a number of projects that we're having students work on that will have them create either an atlas or a camera obscura or a some different let's see, what's the word I'm thinking of? Optical illusions at home. So they'll be able to create those and then post pictures of those to show and prove that they've understood the activity. And then we're also, as part of work with the Air and Space Museum, creating a video game that one of our developers is very excited to work on. And the Air and Space Museum educator was creating the script for, and that involves using a bomb site to see how vision applies in the areas of aviation as well. And the bomb site we're actually using, we've decided to drop supplies rather than bombs to keep it a little less violent. We started out very early on by getting student opinions. So we put out a call for focus groups to some of our partner schools and had students come in, and we worked on a design thinking exercise. We also, the conversation about access to internet and tools got me thinking about some of the conversations we had with them. Most of them mentioned that they always have access to a smartphone or a tablet at their school, but don't necessarily always have desktop access. So that's affected how we're thinking about this. So These are some pictures from the design thinking exercises we were doing. Again, lots of smartphone use. They were talking about Snapchat and YouTube as things that they like to be on at home. So we've really gone into making these experiences very video heavy. And we talked about what would motivate them to keep doing the XPs. And they mentioned there was a good healthy mix of sort of academic and career rewards that they wanted, and monetary based rewards that would be more like museum admission or a coupon for food at the museum cafe, something like that. So right now we're in the stages of really making the content that we propose come to life through the videos that we have decided are necessary. In the slide here, you can see us working with the Museum of Photographic Arts at the camera obscura, and it's looking out on the plaza and flipping the image. And so we'll have a video where we show this actual 100-year-old camera obscura, and then we'll have them make their own version of it at home. And then on the right, you can see the bomb site from the Air and Space Museum that we're using to create the video game around. Our next steps are to really get into the filming process, so we're scripting right now. We have to continue developing the game and really get to work in the platform. We also need to design the badges, and then throughout the whole process, we hope to continue testing with teens. Right now, our plan is to finish one playlist at a time and release it to the teens that we worked with in the initial focus group, and they all seem on board for continuing to try it out and give us feedback. And I know this is a session for us to ask questions as well, so I have a few here that I know we touched upon already, but I'd love to hear what the group has to say, weighing in on some of these issues. So does anyone have any thoughts?
So yeah, I agree that keeping student interest is challenging. And I'll probably also tag Gurley in here in a second. What we've had the best success with is keeping both XPs and playlists short and really focused. They tend to work through them better when there's like very discrete learning goals. As soon as the playlists start to go above like 5 to 7 XPs, you can see them kind of check out during user testing. At least that's been our experience. And if there are multiple asks in a single XP, that oftentimes will either be confusing or an additional barrier to getting things complete. Early?
I think you mentioned the ones I was going to mention with regards to strategies for keeping students interested. I could speak a little bit to the second bullet point, and the third actually as well. For the show improved activities you recommend, I guess it would depend on the nature of the learning experiences that you are designing. But with some of our national playlists, what we've tried to do is focus on the action, looking for a product or an artifact that is produced from the experience and having them demonstrate that. And once we also are able to have allow multiple submissions, one of the things we'd like to do is accompany those either videos or images of the actual products with a reflection or description of what it might mean with regards to the larger learning experience itself. In regards to your third bullet point for designing badges, do you mean the images themselves, or really more how do you design a badge, the badge requirement, the badge criteria? Could you clarify?
A little bit of both. I mean, we have the basic ideas behind the badges that we want to give out. I'm wondering partly how much you think the design affects students' desire to go after the badge, or affects the badge's ability to show to potential employers that this is a worthwhile experience.
Right. Well, for us, with regards to your first question about how much does it affect a youth's desire to go after the badge, I think part of what we've been trying to do is make sure that the badges unlock some sort of opportunity or currency to give the badge a little bit more credence. Also, there's the notion of the badge being, for some badges, if they are somewhat scarce, or or if earning the badge is what's the word I'm looking? I'm blanking on the word. An accomplishment itself, or a product of some deep effort, then that also lends some value to the badge. Now, with regards to how to design it so that it has credibility for other people, I think the direct alignment between the badge criteria and the requirements and how the learning experiences in your playlist actually align with that and point to it, both back, in both directions, really goes to increasing its credibility. And of course, again, also the show and prove activities you use. So, for instance, if you want to demonstrate that youth can describe, let's see. I'm blanking on a clear-cut example, but again, I think that's part of what will help increase credibility. And I'm happy to talk you through. I'd be happy to talk you through any of your actual playlists and help consult with you with regards to your badges or review what you guys are doing.
Okay, great.
Moving forward.
And Julia, one thing that other grantees have done with us, especially in the Badges for Lifelong Learning, I'm thinking of Cooper Hewitt's Smithsonian University. They had students who were doing fashion, a lot of fashion. These were not playlists, but fashion tracks, I guess you could say. They actually did a contest where students submitted their own designs for the badges, and then they competed to have those be included so that they were something that the students thought looked cool. I have a teenager, and I know my version of cool is never
what their version is. That's
never,
a great idea. I like that.
And then there's a couple other things that people have said over the years, and I'm not a graphic designer. I can send you some things that I've heard from people in the past about graphic design. We asked our grantees in a 30-question questionnaire about their thoughts on the graphics, and I can send that to you. And some of it is about, flat design versus other stuff that I don't quite understand the technology about, but I can send that to you. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you do want them to be viewed on mobile phone, that it has to have the kind of scalability so that people can see them both on a website and on their phones.
Right, yeah.
I'm kind of curious with respects to badge design, if anyone has any thoughts about complementing the digital badges that go into your digital backpack with potentially real badges, either stickers or patches that folks can actually touch and interact with physically.
So part of when we did the design thinking exercise, we had the Fab Lab come out and participate in one of them. And they actually made like little keychain trinkets that had like an RFID code on the bottom of it, and we asked the students what they thought of that and if they really wanted something of that nature or if a digital badge was fine. And because we were actually doing it in the Hall of Champions museum when we did the testing or the design thinking, they were like, well, we want a trophy like we see behind us. We want something at the end. And so kind of what the students had told us was that they were okay with some sort of digital badge going forward, but in the end, they wouldn't mind having something tangible to have, and that maybe each one that they completed at the end looked a little something different and became kind of maybe as a collector item that they can then compare with their friends and create some sort of kind of competition between them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard that from grantees before in the past as well, that there's I don't know if it's sociological, but there is an experience after earning the badges where there is a lot of comparison, and that is sort of a discovery point for a lot of students to think about what other people did to earn these badges or what other badges are out there in the pathway. And they recommended having some kind of certification, like a paper print, so there can be some sort of ceremony or something to acknowledge it. I will say too that I feel like it's incumbent on this cohort of grantees as well to pay attention to what's happening in the badge world as much as possible, because it does seem like we're at a tipping point where we're going to start to see more technology that allows for collections and sharing a little more intuitively than it has been. So hopefully that will solve some of this as well, that when you earn a badge, you'll be able to figure out ways to print them or share them or put them on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or however it's going to be done, so that the badges actually matter and aren't just sort of this thing that you get and then you don't know where to put them or how to look at other people, what they've earned as well. So there's still some things to work out on that, but IMS Global is moving the standard forward, and the Open Badges community is always looking for feedback from people about how they're using badges and thinking about them. So this aspect of it is still a little bit of work in progress as well. So Misty and Julie, do you feel like there are any other questions, or does anybody have any more questions for Balboa about the work they just shared?
I'm curious about the, I guess I'm curious about how deeply you're integrating playlists into the overall programming, because it seems like there's, and I'm not sure exactly what like your structure is in terms of like personnel. It sounds like there's pretty wide acceptance and support for this. Are we seeing that that your organization is basically adopting this organization, or like the entire organization is adopting this idea of playlist?
I think it's in the early stages, but I think there is a lot of support for it among the different museums that we work with. I think a lot of it will have to do with figuring out how to make it sustainable. So how to cover staff time working on it and those sorts of things. But I think if we can work with museums on getting it incorporated into the education programs that they already have, whether it's for field trips or after school programs, summer camps, that if we can brainstorm around that, then it has the potential for more staying power and growth in our park here.
I think, and another kind of what Julia was alluding to in the beginning of this is, as a park, or right now BPOC is leading a digitization effort in the entire park to start digitizing assets and creating playlists around those assets to create more interactivity. And we've done 9 so far that will be launching in March that's separate from the LRNG program, but it's just to get people out and start connecting the institutions together. So we've got a little bit on a curation side of art and culture, and now we have this art and science and learning and vision.
May be of interest to others. Evan's question. Evan, if you want to come out of mute and share your question, it looks like a multi-part question that's really interesting. It might be helpful to other people on the call as well.
Sorry, is that better? Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. In relation to what Kylie was saying before about if the XPs get too long or the playlist is too long, you kind of lose attention of the young people who are engaging with them. So as we're developing our XPs, we're trying to take that into mind and break them out into smaller chunks, even though they're kind of related to more complex things. So to make it very concrete, this morning we were working on one where one of our consultants, who is a beat maker, was thinking about the difference between sample-based beat construction and synthesis-based beat construction. So we started off with an exercise where you could hear a beat and make a sample-based version of it, a synthesized-based version of it, and then kind of compare the two and see which one you like better. And then we're thinking, we could lose students because, or learners, because the process of doing that is going to take a while. And then first you have the sample-based one, then you have a synthesis-based one, and then to go into the digital audio workstation and go back and forth between, do I like this one or this one, could be too many steps. So if we were to break that out into 3 different smaller XPs, we're trying to think around the ways of how do you begin to organize smaller XPs so it's evident that these are all related to one another. And then the second part of it is if you're creating a playlist where that might be just one way of engaging with beat production, whereas you can also do something completely different over on like an acoustic-based beat, like where you're banging pen caps on your desk or something like that, and you only have to do like this group or that group. We're just trying to think around the ways that people are organizing smaller divisions of XPs so that they make sense in a more comprehensive or unified way. Both from a technical standpoint, although it doesn't seem yet that the interface allows for that, and then from a more conceptual standpoint of how people are organizing the playlist in that way, if anyone's encountering that.
I'll hop in just in terms of one of the workarounds we've done with some of our playlists. We encountered the same thing you did, and then we're trying to move into, again, creating smaller XPs that only have 1 or 2 steps in them, exactly to fit the problems that you were addressing. And what we've done to do that is we have just basically tried to lump them in using the same title, like having some section of the title, so that at least at first glance, even if you're not looking at the XPs within the playlist itself, but in the larger navigating space, you can start to get a sense of which ones might be hanging together, and then also indicating it by numerically. Definitely, at some point, our platform is going to support actually technically grouping XPs, chunking XPs together within a playlist to make that more conceptually explicit for young people.
And then are you thinking through, so let's say what would have been 1 XP is now 3 XPs, and now the playlist looks like it's 21. So how are you thinking around those kinds of issues?
Well, so what we've done in that case, sometimes we've scaled back just even the nature of the playlist. So perhaps, for instance, we're developing a mobile photography playlist, and when we realized we had to break apart one of the XPs, that was also a signal to us that perhaps the playlist itself was too broad, right? And so we ended up taking what was once one big playlist and chunking it into 2 smaller playlists.
Okay, yeah, that's what we were starting to think about.
Right.
How many of the original playlists that we proposed, how many need to be smaller playlists, or do we just start with a smaller thing for this particular project and then as time goes on begin to scale it out more and expand? So we're thinking through that. I was just wondering how other people are thinking through that.
I would say that that's a debate that we had about the 3 that we proposed. We weren't sure whether they would be one that was split into kind of subsections or 3 that loosely connected. And, given what we've seen and what we've heard from you all, I think the 3 that are loosely connected is the best option for us right now.
And can you see what's on the screen? I don't know if I shared it enough.
Yes.
So this is just briefly, we're categorizing in sandboxes for learning. We're categorizing into 3 different areas, right? EU, Be Connected, Argument Research, and Visual Literary Arts. And then we're keeping the playlist pretty short and then organizing them onto this sort of graph here. Yeah. So you can kind of move from this one to this one or in different directions. So that's sort of how we're thinking about the putting them together in a tree of sorts.
Do you have a sense, Paul, how you might keep the kind of nonlinearity aspect of it once it goes into the LRNG system?
Well, we're thinking that for now, the youth will work with a teacher or a mentor and work through these representations on these pages, right? So that's some of an answer, I think.
Okay.
So let's say you start here and then you can have a conversation. Do you go to stress impacts or do you go over here to bias, right? Or do you hop over and do some argument work for a while?
So this becomes kind of like the entry point, and then once they make that decision with the mentor, then they go into LRNG platform and find the one that they said they would go to?
These actually link to the LRNG platform, right?
Oh.
Right. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, so they're going in through WordPress and then linking into LRNG instead of going in straight from the LRNG as the front space.
Yep. That's
And
our.
I just want to remind everybody that, or let everybody know that Paul is going to be presenting on February 16th with My City, My Place will be the other project. So we'll see this in more detail, I hope, when Paul and Christina share their project. I just wanted to interject that in case, Evan, you could make that. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Great time in between too. It sounds like we're going in the same place of shorter and then trying to figure out how they fit together. So, yeah.
Do we have any other questions, either for or from LRNG?
I guess one other question for LRNG is, since we're working on a national one, and the badges would, from prior conversations, it seems that when it comes to badges, there'll be kind of a more national-oriented badge, and it'll be up to each local city to determine how they get unlocked and what kinds of access are provided at that local level. And I'm wondering how that will occur. Like, if that's something, I don't see how we could do that because there's all those other cities, but I'm just wondering if that's in the conversation, or how that, if there's a process for that to occur, for national to articulate to local contexts.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, so, the one of two top priority features that we'll be releasing in the spring is the new shared library update, which I think, a lot of you have seen some of the work that's been done on that. So the shared library feature, Evan, will be the main way that cities or organizations can localize national content by, taking your awesome playlist or badge and remixing it and changing any elements necessary for local use, and then kind of republishing a local version of it that'll attribute, you and your team as the original author, but, with any changes that they need for their local purpose.
Thanks.
But Evan, we should also set up a time to talk about what it looks like for your playlist to live at the national level, and then how we can create narratives that will help the local folks figure out how to contextualize them and attach opportunities.
Okay, I'll make sure that happens.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
This has been great. I wish we could do this with all of the projects. And hopefully the workshop will be this and more, just to get to see this a little bit more visualized and articulated. I know sometimes reading it in text and talking about it doesn't quite give justice to just how interesting everybody's approaching these. It's very exciting. I wish I was a youth in this day and age, learning all this stuff. So just to remind everybody, we do have another webinar at 1:00 Eastern Time on Thursday, February 16th, and that is going to be with Sandboxes for Learning with Paul and Christina. And then we'll also have Carissa, who's with My City, My Place, and the rest of her team. And we'll do the same format. It's hard because we want to hear more usually when people are presenting about their projects, but try to keep to 20 minutes each, and then a chance for people to come and ask questions. Usually the questions are applicable to everybody, that maybe we haven't encountered them or are not currently designing around them, but the questions are great. So if you have any that you think of after this, or you have any that pop up while you're getting ready for the next webinar, bring them to the next one and let us know what you're thinking. And hi, David, too. We didn't get a chance to say hi to you. There's David over there. Hi, David.
Sorry, I'm on mute.
Cool. Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.